Okay, we're here on the Schmearcast. I'm here with first-time guest Ayana Murray. Ayana and I met in Cannes this past May at the movie party, I think.
Yeah, we did.
Did you have a nice Cannes?
I had a great Cannes. I had more, I went to more parties than usual, which was a new thing for me. I went to the highest to lowest party.
Oh, wow. How was that? You saw ASAP and Rihanna?
Rihanna was not there. I caught a glimpse of ASAP. But
did you like that movie?
Well, like the first hour, I was nervous. I was like, this is not looking good. But then when it, but then I think when it stops remaking high and low, and becomes its own thing, I thought it was like really profound and had like really smart things to say about sort of like artistic integrity and music right now. I thought it was a really smart film once it actually got going. That party was funny because an hour in, like, me and my friends were all together and we were like, why is this party so dead? And then we like looked to the other side and we realized like we're in the normie section of the party and all the celebrities are like at the actual party on the other side
of the room. Oh, there was a party within the party?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, that's no fun.
Yeah, but we snuck into...
No, I'm sure you still had fun. Lest the listeners think you're just a party hopper, I should say that you are a critic, you're a writer, you're a profiler. You have profiles of Javier Bardem quite recently, Adam Scott, my personal favorite, Harry Lottie, R.I.P. to Rob Spearing on Industry. What the hell happened there? Don't know.
I know.
And Jodie Turner-Smith. And your work can be found in GQ, Dazed, many other places. Ayana, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Did I intro you well enough? Do you have anything else you want to say about yourself before we dive into the movie we're discussing today?
I think you covered all the bases except aptly for the film we're talking about. I'm a huge Formula One fan.
Yes, we are talking about F1, the new Brad Pitt film. We are recording this on Thursday, June 26th. The movie comes out today here in North America. I guess around the world, right? Same this weekend.
I think it's out here tomorrow, but...
Okay.
Yeah.
And it is 10 p.m. for you in London, 2 p.m. for me here. So I wanted to have you on because I wanted an expert in the room. I go into this film knowing nothing about F1. I saw it a couple nights ago. I don't watch Drive to Survive. I have seen the Ron Howard movie.
Rush,
yes.
Yeah.
About James Hunt.
And Niki Lauda.
James Hunt and Niki Lauda. Yes, I've seen that. That's the extent of my knowledge. And then, I know these are, we can't even compare them, but the other sport of NASCAR, I know through Talladega Nights, and that's it. Like, racing is not my thing. I love sports, but this is just something I haven't gotten behind. And I follow you on Twitter, and two of your passions, aside from movies, is tennis, which we're not talking about today, but love tennis, played a match today, and F1, Formula One. And I think even before this movie was coming out, I just saw you would tweet about F1. What do you love about this sport before we get into the movie, and if it succeeds or not?
Basically, just to sum up my sort of relationship with Formula One, my dad is a huge fan, so I'd been kind of surrounded by it all my life, really. I remember seeing races on TV, sort of being semi-interested, but not totally invested. I remember watching it a bit when Michael Schumacher moved to Mercedes and that being a really big deal. But then I think, like most people, I got properly invested in Drive to Survive, which is probably like a dirty term at this point. Because I feel like, and the movie sort of addresses this, where like
yes, there's a character who thinks he's with it because he watched Drive to Survive, and he is the joke is he's absolutely not.
Yeah, I think like the association with it is that like if you were introduced to the sport through Drive to Survive, then you're kind of a fake fan and you're only in it for the drama. To that point,
when did that show come out?
I think it started during the first season covered the 2018 season.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that show went wild during COVID, especially. I feel like that's when I felt like I was hearing about F1 the most.
Yeah. I think, like, for all of the sort of bad connotations that show has, I think the good it has done is sort of introduce a whole new generation of fans to the sport, people from demographics that might not have been interested in it before. And I think like even though that show is kind of concerned with interpersonal drama and beef and sort of those kinds of narratives, I think there is something really interesting and sort of tantalizing about the narratives that form throughout the season.
Right, they're characters.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the same with every sport.
And they're wearing team colors and they're on teams. Like, it's just natural drama that comes from that. And then add in the physical excellence and the speed of these cars. Like, it's understandable that it is so intoxicating. And I myself might be a little more intoxicated after watching F1, the movie, and then a few other follow-up things. But let me just try to say what I think F1 is, and I think it'd be fun for you to correct me, okay?
Okay, go for it.
So, here's my understanding, because I don't think my listeners even know this, so I think we're going to help them along, and then it'll be much easier to discuss the new Brad Pitt film. So, there are 10 teams, and these teams, most of them, are proprietary car makers. So, McLaren, Ferrari, and if, you know, you're on Team Red Bull, like, you're using other parts from other cars, but, like, you build your own car, or multiple cars. You have 2 racers per team. They are teammates, but they're also out for themselves. They can be called up to F1 from F2, or they could be called down and be fired from their spot. And they are racing a series of Grand Prix across the world in some really amazing locations. These cars are going about 220 miles per hour at their top speeds, but average around 200. So you're impressed. You're smiling a little bit.
You're clued up.
You try to get as fast a time as possible, always driving about 50 to 70 laps per race. But it's about your position and the points you accrue over the course of the year. And whoever has the most is the winner of F1 for the year.
Yeah. So there's.
How'd I do?
You.
Oh, wait! I forgot the most exciting part. The guys are like very handsome, and their girlfriends are super hot. Let's just be real.
The most important part. Yeah.
And Rolexes galore, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now you go. How did I do?
No, you nailed it. But I think like the interesting thing is that like for Ferrari and maybe McLaren as well, actually, they started as Formula One racing teams, and then the car manufacturing came out as a way to sort of fund the.
Yeah, who could forget the doll flying through the air in Ferrari, Michael Mann's movie?
Yes.
That crazy crash scene.
Exactly. You caught onto the fact as well that like I think Formula One is a unique sport in the way that you have teammates who are simultaneously rivals,
right?
Which creates an interesting dynamic that F1, the movie, really explores.
Yeah. To help edify the listeners, like, what's your favorite team? Who are your favorite drivers? Just to give people a sense of how the team loyalty and fandom kind of works.
Yeah, I come from a family where we all support different teams. My dad is a Mercedes guy.
Cool.
And his favorite driver is Lewis Hamilton. My little sister's favorite team is McLaren, and her favorite driver is I'm lying, Oscar Piastri.
She would have been mad at you if you got that.
Yeah, I know, she would have. My older sister's favorite team is Red Bull, and her favorite driver is Max Verstappen. And mine is the best, Ferrari, and my driver is Charles Leclerc. Oh, I forgot, Lewis Hamilton's at Ferrari. My dad's favorite driver now is George Russell. But
So are you following a racer or a team, or is that a question that divides fans? Like, am I sticking with House Mercedes even though my favorite driver went to McLaren?
Well, that's a thing. The biggest story that came out of F1 last year was that Lewis was leaving his team Mercedes, where he won 7 championships, and he moved to Ferrari because he said that, you know, every driver at some point wants to race for Ferrari because we're the best team.
Wow, and Toto Wolff probably didn't like that.
Probably.
Look at me.
Did you know all the names?
I'm
you
so
know
with
everyone.
it. 48 hours of research. I'm so into F1.
Yeah, but I think to that point, like, I think Ferrari sort of inspires this unique sort of devotion. You don't really see it in the movie, but, like, it's sort of borderline religious.
Yeah. Right.
It's
the oldest, right? Or it's one of the oldest?
Yeah, it's the oldest team. Yep. Yeah.
All right, we swear we're going to talk about the movie F1. This is a movie podcast, but I have one more question. Did F1, the movie, capture the reality of Formula One as a sport? And let me just ask you, like, the glamour of it, the locations, all of that, is that realer than ever? Like, is the money more than ever? And the fame and the women, like the glitz of it, is that a real aspect of F1 that really attracts people?
I don't know about attracts people, but I think, like, absolutely Drive to Survive helped with this, where, like, it attracted even more eyes and even more money into the sport. And, like, you kind of don't see an F1 race anymore without the camera cutting to a celebrity in someone's garage. And yeah, I think the film, like, definitely did capture that sort of glamour, but also the ridiculousness of it. Yeah, you could see the friction between the drivers and sort of the organization in terms of making it entertainment as well as a sport.
The money behind this is insane.
Like, Formula One has a cost cap now, so if you crash your car too much, you're kind of in trouble because you can only spend money so much on repairs, which I kind of, like, the film was not gonna cover that aspect, but, like, Brad Pitt crashes a lot in this movie.
He's the crash master.
Where like that team was gonna run out of money by how much Brad Pitt was crashing.
All right. Let's talk about F1 the movie. I do think the background is helpful because I think a lot of people are seeing this and have little familiarity with F1. Let's call F1 the movie, and then Formula One we'll call that as the sport.
Let's do that.
Okay, now that, your bona fides as a fan have been established, tell me what you thought of this movie, F1, starring Brad Pitt, Damson Idris, Javier Bardem, Carrie Condon, directed by Joseph Kosinski, director of Top Gun Maverick. What did you think of F1?
I feel like I've had to separate my thoughts on this as a film fan and as an F1 fan, because I think those are, like, very sort of distinct feelings on the film. I think as a film, I think it hits all the same beats as Top Gun Maverick, where, like, it felt like this very classic blockbuster that, had this great underdog story, and even though the beats feel very familiar, there's a reason why that formula, so to speak, works. It's just like constant dopamine. Like, it feels great, and I think the racing scenes look amazing. But I will say, I think as a fan, I was kind of disappointed by the lack of actual quality racing. This film is so focused on sort of what can go wrong in a race that it doesn't highlight how amazing F1 is to watch when things go right and you see amazing wheel-to-wheel racing, and it doesn't really capitalize on that feeling until the very end. So I wish there was more of that. That's
interesting. Well, see, this is great. This is why I have you on. You're the expert. I am the newbie.
What did you think?
I found it to be sleek, as aerodynamic as the cars themselves zooming past at 200 miles per hour. It's just a well-oiled machine, to stick with the metaphor of a movie. It really is also a sports movie. I know it does copy much of Top Gun Maverick. And you could also even argue, like, I know that's about fighter jets, but that has sports movie vibes too.
Yeah.
Even though it's not technically a sports film. But this is a sports movie that's, like, throwing out every cliche in the book to an insane degree. And in terms of meaning and significance, like, anything truthful or real in it was in one ear, out the other. But it does have something, and that is a star. And that star's name is William Bradley Pitt. And I thought, on IMAX, in a huge theater, he shined very, very brightly. So I saw this big and loud, and I had a great time. But I have no feeling or thought about it following it, besides, hey, this Formula One thing's kind of cool. I could be into this.
I have, like, mixed feelings
on Brad
Pitt in this film. Maybe more so in a character sense than a performance sense, because I think he's fine. Like, he's very charismatic as an actor, and there's something sort of innately rootable in that character and that performance. But I think at the same time, I found Sonny Hayes, his character, to be really dislikable, actually. I was really, like, rooting for Damson Idris' character, Joshua Pierce, more than Sonny Hayes.
Sonny does fuck up a ton.
Yeah, and I know it's, like, part of his struggle that he has to learn to sort of work in a team.
Right.
But the way he sort of bulldozes the strategist for most of this movie, like, I don't know, it didn't really make me want to
root for him. It didn't
feel as gratifying when he eventually did start, you know, becoming a proper team member. Yeah.
That's fair. Brad Pitt kind of does the same thing as Tom Cruise, which is he already gets you like 75% of the way there with the character before you know anything about the character. Like, the connotation of the person is so strong. As I left the movie, I was thinking about Top Gun Maverick, because obviously with the Joseph Kosinski, with the vibes of the movie, I'm thinking to myself about Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, because they are legends, but they also have some checkered backgrounds, and their reputations may have taken some strange hits recently, but they're also stars that could open a movie. But what it came down to for me between Top Gun Maverick, which, spoiler, like, I think Top Gun Maverick's the better movie, but I just like Brad Pitt more than Tom Cruise. Like, I just find Tom Cruise quite weird. And that's part of my affection for him, because he's our alien saving cinema. I just get a little more humanity and pathos with Brad Pitt than Tom Cruise, who's just like, beep, boop, beep. Like, I don't know what the hell is happening in that man's head besides him being Tom Cruise.
No, I get you. Tom's weirdness is part of his appeal, and I think that's why I like him more than Brad Pitt. I feel like he's sort of like a sort of blank slate to me, where I can't really see
Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where I can't really see like a personality. I don't know.
That's where I disagree with you, but we'll get there. All right, let's talk about the production of this film first. So Joseph Kosinski was a big Drive to Survive fan, watched it during COVID, and he put this movie together with Days of Thunder producer Jerry Bruckheimer and Brad Pitt. And they sparked this big bidding war during COVID with Paramount, MGM, Sony, Universal, Disney, Netflix, Amazon. Everyone seems except Warner Brothers. And of course, Apple being up for it. Apple wins this. The character of Sonny Hayes was written for Brad Pitt, who loves racing, supposedly. Grew up racing motorcycles, so it's a bit of a personal connection for him. The pitch was pretty simple. Top Gun on a racetrack. But what Joseph Kosinski said he wanted was just authenticity at every step of the way. And Top Gun Maverick, I think, really surprised people when that came out. Surprised me, for sure, because there was this glut of bad superhero movies around that time that were using tons of special effects. So it was incredibly refreshing that Top Gun Maverick put us in the cockpit, took us up into the skies. Never for a second are you watching that movie thinking it's faked. Because it's not. You could understand Kosinski wanting to do literally what Tony Scott did, which was make Top Gun, big blockbuster in the air, make a racing movie. Tony Scott's was Days of Thunder, this being F1 on the ground. So I thought you'd like this. Brad Pitt and Joe Kosinski went to London, where you are right now.
Yes.
Pitched this to Stefano Domenicali. Do you know this man? The CEO of F1?
Oh, yes.
Is he a behind-the-scenes guy, or is he, like, front and center?
I don't think he's very front and center.
Okay.
Because you don't see his name very much.
I don't think you can make this movie if you don't have access and buy-in from Formula One. Because you need those races to feel real. You want access to their cars, their racetracks, the events that they put on all year. Like, how do you embed? And so they screened Top Gun Maverick for Stefano Domenicali, the CEO of Formula One. And he gave the movie his blessing, and the only thing he said is that no teams could be portrayed as villains. So they created that fictional...
Apex GP? I think that's
that sounds
what they call it.
So this was some unprecedented access to what can be agreed upon is a pretty tight-knit sport. Formula One really likes to maintain its image and its cool factor, and so they wanted this movie to get it right. At every Grand Prix when they shot this, F1 the movie would have its own garage in a pit lane.
Yeah.
Those were real fans in the audience. It contributes to a realer feeling than you can imagine. And then I think most importantly for the production, and enhancing the realism is that Lewis Hamilton, the Michael Jordan of F1, the greatest by record Formula One driver, was a consultant and a producer on the film, helping with the technical stuff, but also the character's psychology. And once his buy-in was there, that kind of opened the doors to all the other F1 drivers in that world of being like, hey, let's back this movie. This is pretty cool.
It's interesting, but it's funny because everything I've gathered about the pre-production process is because I was watching the races, and you would see Brad Pitt and Damson Idris there. You would see the Apex GP garage, and they did like the national anthem at Silverstone, and Brad Pitt and Damson Idris were standing there as if they were part of the team, and then they did the formation lap.
So it's a good point to ask you. Like, were fans like yourself and others being like, hey, this is gonna be pretty cool, or were you like, get this shit out of here?
I think there was a lot of trepidation. Just sort of concerns about perhaps maybe the accuracy and how Formula One was going to be represented. There were certain points where people were getting nervous about this, but I think also it was quite exciting that cameras being fitted onto the cars. Not only, I mean, the Apex GP cars are Formula 2 cars, I believe.
Right.
But then they also fitted cameras onto the actual drivers' cars during practice sessions, I think, to capture some of the racing footage in a more
authentic sense. And that was Brad
sense.
Pitt and Damson Idris driving.
Now
they weren't reaching the peak speeds of F1, but they were getting up there. So this movie had a $300 million budget. I wonder how much was the insurance for these actors, specifically Brad Pitt and his smile. I heard he got $30 million as his upfront fee for the movie. So
oh my goodness.
A lot of money involved here.
There's a good piece in GQ, the cover story about F1 the movie, where it kind of dives into the insurance of it all, which is quite interesting,
And this shot in the year that it was shooting at 9 different Grand Prix all over the world, and you can tell, and that's great. Let's talk about Joe Kosinski. We kind of mentioned him already. Are you a Top Gun Maverick fan, his most famous movie prior to this?
I am, yeah. I had so much fun in that movie, and I think the flight sequences in that are obviously shot incredibly. I enjoy a Tom Cruise movie, so I was on board.
What does Kosinski do well, to your mind, as a director?
To echo something you said earlier, just the point that we're in a place right now where so many of the big budget blockbusters, despite how big the price tag is, they're just replete in green screens and visual effects, and you don't get a sense of the tactility of the action that's happening. To watch something like Top Gun Maverick or like Mission Impossible movie, where you can see people are flying in fighter jets and hanging off planes and, I don't know, going in submarines and stuff.
Yeah. You
can feel the stakes are real, and just the emotion you get out of that is so much more heightened than you would get from, you know, a really VFX heavy film.
It's interesting with Kosinski because he has a VFX background, and his first movie was Tron, right?
Right,
one of the Tron remakes. And so he's kind of gone from a VFX obsession to more tactility, which I kind of respect that he's trying to do that. I feel like I'm very familiar with Kosinski's work because I've seen Top Gun Maverick, which is an extremely rewatchable film. I think I've probably seen it 5 times. And it's a great movie because it plays amazing, big, and loud. And it also plays really good at home. And I think that's because it just hits the right beats. It's comforting. It's got like a golden color palette and look, and a nostalgia of that Top Gun theme coming in. And I think that's kind of missing with F1. And that's not F1's problem. Like, it can't manufacture nostalgia out of thin air. But Top Gun's got that theme. It had the Val Kilmer moment in Top Gun Maverick. Like, it has all these signifiers to connect you to the past. F1's trying to just build something brand new mid-drive, mid-flight. I think it's a disadvantage that isn't its fault, but is a way that it's not going to replicate the magic of Top Gun Maverick. The star of F1 is Brad Pitt. We started talking about him a little bit. Megastar. Where do you stand on Brad Pitt? It's a big, loaded question.
It's funny because I wrote a piece in GQ ages ago talking about how my favorite performance of his was Burn After Reading.
Okay.
And I stand by that. I really enjoyed that performance. And
Great performance.
I've seen that movie more than any other Coen Brothers movie, I think. So
plays an idiot so well.
Yeah, exactly. He plays a great himbo. That and like Thelma and Louise. But I think now with the abuse allegations surround him now, it leaves a sour taste in my mouth to see that this film, I think, also doubles as a sort of, image rehabilitation vehicle for him.
That's not a pun intended. Pun.
No. It's just that sort of thing where like he's one of the last movie stars, so in that sense he's untouchable. There's just this cloud over him and I can't really shake that, and I don't fault anyone for not watching that film because Brad Pitt is in it.
I don't want to wade too far into this, but I will just echo what you're saying and say that those allegations and I guess his past couple of years I think have derailed someone we've thought of previously as just like the coolest, calmest, most collected guy. You see his face, you're just like, I like that dude. And so this is a huge complicating factor to that. But he is sober now, kind of trying to redefine himself, like you said recently. He's got a new girlfriend, he's got a new stylist. He's acting in some interesting things like Babylon, which I thought that was a pretty interesting self-reflexive role in that film. But then he's also done some reprehensibly shitty things like Wolves. It's not even called Wolves. It should be with a V. It's Wolves.
Wolves with an F.
Hated that movie.
Yep.
And obviously he won the Oscar a few years ago for Best Supporting Actor for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The line between him acting and him being and just being himself is very blurry at this point. Mm-hmm. And that definitely applies to his character, Sonny Hayes, in this, because it's kind of just Brad Pitt,
Yeah. Very much coasting on his sort of innate star appeal.
Right,
yeah.
And not trying to ruffle any more feathers than he's already done with his own actions.
Mm-hmm. He's not really stretching any muscles.
No.
In this film. I mean, physically, yes, but acting-wise, no.
That segues great into the movie because it could be our first debate, because in terms of what I really liked about F1, the movie, is Brad Pitt. I thought he was really good. And I am unsure, again, like, how much am I seeing a character and how much am I seeing Brad Pitt? And I think if there's anything interesting in this movie that is so cliche-filled, that is so predictable, the tiniest modicum of tension of his character and who he is and what he's bringing to this kind of metatextually. Now again, like, I think 98% of viewers of this movie will not think about that. Not because I don't think viewers are smart. I just think we like to talk and think like that as movie critics. But I really thought back to his speech in Babylon towards the end. He's got this scene with Jean Smart, and she's like a gossip columnist in the 1920s Hollywood, and she says, like, I'm sorry I don't have the quote up in front of me, but it's something like, you're gonna die, but your characters are gonna live forever. I thought about that again here, specifically on one scene on this balcony in Vegas, and he's with Carrie Condon, who plays his love interest, who we'll talk about. I don't know, it's kind of like moved by that. It wasn't extended throughout the entire film. Like, this is not The Wrestler from Darren Aronofsky. Like, that's the super serious version of this. But to kind of detect, like, the frisson of intensity with Brad Pitt, I had a good time with that, and I did feel it sometimes.
I mean, actually, I think the thing that worked for me was Damson Idris, and I think for all of the sort of cliches that this film kind of covers, one of the most interesting things about Damson Idris's character is this sort of conflict between being an athlete and being a celebrity, which is something that I wish the film sort of tapped into more, because I thought that was a really interesting conflict that actually feels sort of relevant to Formula One drivers now, as they have sort of become forced to market themselves more and become personalities
Right.
in their own right, where like this character is sort of distracted because he has so many media engagements and he has to post on Instagram and do all these interviews and stuff, and I thought that had like an interesting like meat to it that was just really fascinating, and I thought Damson Idris just was really great and charismatic, and I loved the cockiness of his character. I thought that was really fun and played well into the rivalry that he has with Sonny. And
big picture, like, we're kind of saying the same thing in the sense that like there are really juicy aspects to this story that could make this elevate it to like Oscar potential drama, and it takes the easy route each time. It doesn't want to be serious. It kind of wants to be a little disposable, and back to that sleekness, you know, like it doesn't get rough and dirty with the politics, the people, the feelings, the like it just, every time you kind of want it to dig. Maybe people don't want it to dig deeper, but you could see threads that could be pulled on for a more serious, intense, memorable, emotional movie, and it takes the easy road.
Yes. I think
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I get it. And I think a symptom of the fact that, like you said, they're not allowed to sort of make any villains out of the existing drivers and teams is that the sort of journey and struggle and conflict of Apex GP feels very isolated, where it's just like a war with themselves. And I know for a fact that like that's obviously a struggle that F1 teams have, but then you know, the races, as much as you see the other cars, you see them going wheel to wheel, it still feels very isolated, where they're not really sort of interacting with any other teams. It can't be helped when, you know, none of the drivers are really actors, and you can't really show any proper rivalries.
Yeah. All right, so you don't like Brad Pitt in this movie. A lot of people don't, actually. Or a vocal minority does not like him in this film.
Yeah, I'm lukewarm on his performance. I don't think he's doing anything sort of revolutionary.
No.
But I come up against Sonny Hayes, the character, just because I think it takes so long for him to actually become a part of the team.
Right.
And I think he's so focused on his own thing that...
Which is what? Like, that's... I'm not asking you. It's
I
that's
don't
a rhetorical
even know.
question. It's like,
I don't even know, because the car at the beginning is rubbish, so it's not like you're getting first in any of these, and he's talking about, like,
and
driving...
they're always like, what do you race for? It's the money? And he's like, no, it's not the money. And then he leaves it.
Yeah. It's about
like, okay, he loves the race. We got it.
It's about the thrill, but then also, like, you know, driving into other cars is supposed to have consequences, which this film doesn't really delve into sort of regulations-wise. I was glad that he wasn't saddled with, like,
an ex-wife or a kid. Like, we didn't have to bring that baggage into it. And maybe that's a bit metatextual, too, in terms of Brad Pitt.
Yeah. But
wish fulfilling his background away. But... Yeah. You know, it would have bogged down this already 150-something minute movie.
Speaking of women, though, I really didn't vibe with Carrie Condon's role.
I had this as a positive.
I
thought she was great. I thought they had chemistry. I could have used even more sex between them, but... You know, she's like relatively age appropriate for Brad Pitt. I'm glad he didn't have a Leo DiCaprio aged girlfriend.
Yeah.
I thought she was great.
Yeah, I think it's more because I had a similar disagreement about this the other day with someone who feels the same way as you, but I think it's just the principle of, you know, the chief technical engineer being the love interest, and it's
complete fantasy.
Yeah. And also just in the sort of context of how difficult it is for a woman to break into motorsport generally.
Right. She wouldn't risk it by going off with not even the great racer.
Yeah.
Like little old Sonny Hayes.
Yeah. It's not just that. It's just sort of like, I don't want to pin all of female representation in motorsport to just Carrie Condon, but
totally.
Just the idea of that leaves a sour taste for me when it feels like, you know, it's already so hard for women to break into motorsport, and it feels like women are undervalued, and there hasn't been a woman in an F1 car in however many years. And I get that her character and Sunny Hayes like have this relationship built on respect for what each other do, and I think there's something admirable in that, but I just didn't like that she was the love interest in it. I just feel like it came to a point where like her role as the chief engineer on this, it felt secondary to her being the love interest after a certain point when they get together. And,
I think that's a really good point. I agree. But you could also say that Carrie Condon in the role, in the performance, is very good too, right?
She's amazing. I love her.
With what she's got.
She's so fun.
Not much.
that first scene they have like in a pub.
Yeah, crackles.
Where she's talking him down. It's so good. I love her.
Something else I thought was great, and we've kind of touched on it already, but just like, and this is also part of the issue, and you know, again, like, my thing is, what movie do you want? You want this to be sleek and shiny? You got that. Do you want it to be rough and tumble? You're not getting that. And so, but if this is going to be sleek, the costumes, the cars, the montage, like the editing, I love their black and white outfits. I thought they looked really svelte and good in those. I like that scene when they're testing the car and the lasers are going all over it.
Yeah.
It's just very sharp and satisfying. It's shot by cinematographer Claudio Miranda. You mentioned it earlier, like those cameras are attached to the car in different locations. And I heard Kosinski say that there are 15 total cameras used in different parts of the car to give you different looks at the race. That's an attention to detail I'm always going to be down for, and I think they pulled that aspect off really well.
I thought it looked really amazing. I think especially when the camera's sort of in the helmet and you see them sort of look to the side and see what other drivers is up to, I think it really captured the sort of how decisions are made in a split second. There's this sort of like discourse happening in the F1 community I'm seeing where people are beginning to notice that some of the footage is taken straight from like the broadcast, like the TV broadcast, and they've just VFX'd the Apex GP car onto existing cars. And it makes me think, like, you know, for all of the advances that this film has made in sort of filming F1, and I think, like, oh my god, it looked amazing seeing this on like an IMAX screen as opposed to 1080p on my little TV or whatever. It's just funny that, like, I don't know, the broadcasters had sort of cracked already how to film an F1 race and make it look exciting. They were like, well, we can't top these sort of aerial views, so we may as well take that. And yeah, it's funny. And like even like the POV onboards, I remember when the trailer came out, someone had noticed that like one of the POV shots was taken from the broadcast, and it wasn't. It was Pierre Gasly's Alpine car, and they had VFX'd the Apex car. So yeah, it'll be interesting once more fans see the film and we can see like just how much has been taken from the broadcast and how much is...
I noticed one thing, which is that when they're showing footage of Brad Pitt's crash when he was young, that was direct footage of like a famous F1 crash that I saw in the Senna documentary.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Not of Senna, but of someone else that got thrown and was just like laying there.
Yeah. There's like I think there's like a few incidents where I think the crashes are inspired by real life crashes.
Definitely. There is good, to steal a term from the internet, there's good lore around
lots of great
Formula
lore.
One.
Yeah, the Joshua Pierce crash in Monza, I think it was, when he tries to overtake
the
Max.
Temple of Speed.
Yep. He tries to... You got it. You know all the lingo.
Come on. This guy. 48 hours, as I said.
He tries to overtake Max on the corner, and he's on slick tires in a wet race, which is kind of a big no-no. So obviously something bad's gonna happen. But he tries to overtake Max on the corner, hits a curb, and the car goes flying. I think that the way that the car goes sort of flying like impossibly high in the air and flips like crazy is like taken directly from I believe it's like an F2 crash in
Whoa.
2019, and you can look at the video and it looks just, like
again,
identical.
Glad I wasn't seeing the Ferrari crash from Michael Mann's movie.
That is a crazy crash.
It's crazy. It's bad.
I'm like I fully gasped.
No, it's shocking.
Yeah, like so violent.
All right, we should mention that Javier Bardem is in this film. I know we said a little earlier. You profiled Javier recently.
I did.
He's having fun.
Yeah, he's having a good time.
Reuniting with Brad for the first time since Ridley Scott's The Counselor. Is that possible?
Yeah.
Have you seen The Counselor?
No, I haven't.
Oh, that's a great movie.
Penelope Cruz is in that as well, right?
It's got the craziest cast. You should definitely watch it.
Yeah, no, he's definitely...
Did you find him funny in the movie? In this movie?
He's very sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed his character.
Did you expect him to be a villain, or did you know going in he was not? And, spoilers, sorry. But I was like, I was expecting a villain turn because Javier is so evocative as an actor. And obviously he's Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men, but he's just like huge, intimidating presence. But then again, we just saw in Dune 2, he's absolutely hysterical. So I feel like he's more comedic relief, which is a funny tone for him to be playing. But what did you glean from chatting with him? Which, by the way, is just so cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Speaking of like the metatextual sort of casting, I think that's exactly it. Like, you expect him to be the villain and he's the complete opposite. And I sort of touch on this in my profile of him, where he's gained this reputation for playing really dark, villainous roles. Yeah. And he sort of made a complete U-turn with The Little Mermaid, live action, Dune, and then this, where, I guess he's sort of villainous in Little Mermaid to an extent. He's playing these really sweet, wholesome, sort of comic relief characters. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that his kids are watching his movies now.
I know that affects actors often.
Yeah,
but his sweetness, it emanates. I like him now so much in anything I see. I've always liked him, but there's a new phase that he's entering in that is just very likable.
Yeah, he's very sweet in person too. Nice. He's very lovely.
Something else that worked for me, and here we could talk about Top Gun Maverick again, but old versus new, old school, new school, like the old man wisdom, it's always fun to watch. Whether it's The Color of Money, Top Gun Maverick, the young learning from the old is great. I like when the young teaches the old something too, and that doesn't really happen here. It's like everything is just Brad showing Damson Idris cool things, how to bounce his balls, how to not stay out late at the club, all these like hokey aphorisms. But he doesn't become a better person, to me, from Damson Idris's character. And I don't know if you watched the show Hacks, which the whole show is predicated on this exact thing. And what's great about that show is that the old person, Deborah Vance, learns from the young so much. It's a two-way street, and the best relationships are, and I guess as much as I like this, I'm now realizing it should have gone back and forth a little bit.
Yeah.
A sharper script, a more thoughtful relationship could have been there.
Yeah. Now that you say that, I'm just realizing this too, where Joshua goes through much more of a journey than Sonny does. I feel like Sonny's journey is just his feelings sort of being validated, where like he has these sort of absurd strategies and ideas, and everyone's telling him, no, you're being stupid, like how can you think this is a good idea, and then it turns out it's a good idea, and we're like, well,
that's the whole movie.
Yeah, exactly. I think the film plays into the idea that, like I said before, that Formula One is in this unique spot where teammates are also rivals. I think it would have been great to get sort of more the actual camaraderie in there.
I also want to say I did enjoy the immersion that the film gave me, the transportive feeling, like the fact that you feel that they went to all these events around the world, and just like the globe-trotting aspect of it, Japan, Abu Dhabi, I don't know where else they go. They're in England. They're in Italy. Like, it's just exciting to be taken on a journey in this film. Mm-hmm. What other movies get to do that? You know, you like the relationship with Formula One is extremely unique in the way that it allowed this film to have that access. I don't think it can be overstated.
I know. Yeah. Vegas as well. I think it sort of captures just how great of an atmosphere it is at a Formula One race.
Yeah, I could feel it for sure.
Yeah. I'm going to my first race next week.
Nice.
Which I'm very excited about.
In England.
Yeah, Silverstone. Yeah.
Nice.
Where the film starts at. That'll be really great.
That's cool.
And I can give you feedback about how well the film replicates that atmosphere.
You know, movies with crowds, like, I'm not a VFX artist by any means. I know the work's very hard, but they'll, like, take a part of the crowd and just copy and paste it, you know?
Yeah.
And this does not have that. Those are actual hundreds of thousands of fans
in
the stands.
I remember when because they shot this over, like, 2 seasons. I remember race weekends where people were sort of laughing about the fact that production was handing out, like, cardboard cutouts of Brad Pitt's face and telling everyone, like, you're gonna be on camera, go and cheer. Go and cheer for no reason.
It's funny because also it's a very, like, dopey photo.
Yeah.
Which is a joke in the movie that, like, you know, Damson Idris so slick and Brad just, like, it's like the camera just surprised him one moment.
It's very silly, but that's the appeal. Yeah.
I like the movie more than you, but I had some negatives if you want to hear them.
Go for it. I want to hear it too.
I thought the script was pretty tacky.
Yes.
No one utters one interesting piece of dialogue at any moment. Like, everything is just, like, smoothed out, anodyne. I just watched Days of Thunder this morning. I'm not asking for a Robert Towne script like in that movie. We're never getting back to the 80s when characters said, like, legitimately strange, dangerous, fun, human things.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
This felt like it was just, like, passed through the safety sensors of what can be the least offensive, most basic, let's start the movie, let's end the movie script in terms of dialogue, how the characters talk to each other, and I was just kind of annoyed by that. Not that I expected it to be rough around the edges again and exciting and verbal jousting that impressed me, but, like, it was just so basic, you know?
Yeah.
It's written by Aaron Kruger, who wrote Top Gun Maverick. Yeah.
Do you think the script in Top Gun Maverick was good?
Again, I don't, but I think that has so much extra gestalt and vibes coming from Top Gun.
Yeah.
It captured, like, a certain magic that this has to build from ground zero.
Yeah. I think Formula
the script
One...
is exposed here, I guess is what I'd say.
Yeah. I think F1, like, feels very much like a classic blockbuster. Like, it's definitely going for, like, an old school feel good vibe. You know, like, old blockbusters can also have really great scripts.
Yeah, totally.
And this film doesn't
really dynamic characters.
Yeah.
I watched Senna, the documentary, also part of my research for you. And I felt more for Senna in his famous Brazil first win. His first Grand Prix win in Brazil, which is like a 8-minute sequence, than it did in the entirety of this movie.
I think that's the thing. Like, there are really great narratives that can come out of F1. I think a driver winning their first home race is a really big deal and a really emotional one. Like, last year, my favorite driver, Charles Leclerc, won his home Grand Prix, the Monaco Grand Prix, for the first time. And even though that race was so boring, there were, like, no overtakes.
No one could pass anyone in Monaco, right?
No,
it's too narrow a road.
That's the thing with Monaco now. Like, you're clued up. Like, it's a historical race and it's never gonna go away. But the cars,
so beautiful.
The cars aren't adapted to Monaco anymore. So that race was really boring. But my heart was in my throat the entire time because I was so scared of him losing his lead, and it was just so emotional when he finally won, because that was something that he had been wanting for years and was so close to for many years, but he ended up crashing, or, you know, the strategy failed him. So for that to finally happen was just really gratifying and emotional. And you're not going to get that, obviously, from a film like this that only covers one season, even though Brad Pitt is sort of returning after 30 years and is trying to touch on that idea of someone achieving glory that has eluded them. But I don't think you're not going to get that same sort of context and history from that.
Like, this is not just a movie, it's like a corporation, it's like a business within a movie. And
it's an advertisement.
Right, and the censors it needs to pass to make it palatable for Formula One, for Apple, for all of this, it just sands down anything that could be remotely interesting in this movie.
Yeah.
That's why that Brad Pitt balcony scene worked for me, because I'm like, oh, this is the first time this is actually getting like a little real, and I dig it. I just found the script really quite boring.
Yeah. I'm curious about your thoughts on sort of the racing.
I was pretty thrilled. Again, like talking about Top Gun Maverick, there's just another level of peril to be however many thousand feet up in the air in fighter jets.
Yeah.
The more the racing happened, the less of like, oh wow, you felt. Even though the final moment of him flying, like that was a good moment. My palms were sweaty, like I was into it there, but you're right, like I wasn't getting the competitive drama, sport-specific drama of the racing. It was hard to glean that, I would say.
Yeah.
And again, I watched Senna, the documentary, and, you know, there's footage of him driving, and it's grainy, and, like, I was feeling that more even in that than I was in this movie.
Yeah.
Which costs nothing. That's just using the footage that the drivers have in their helmets, in their cockpits from the 1980s.
Yeah.
But still, like, that kind of rocked me even more.
Yeah, exactly. I think nothing in this film really captures the true feeling. I mean, I'm not an F1 driver, so I don't know what it feels like, but the sort of thrill of... Not yet. But sort of the true thrill of sort of being in the driver's seat and driving at 200 miles per hour and sort of feeling the wind and how late you're braking and how quick you're turning. I don't think you feel that until the very last race in Abu Dhabi. And every race before that, the tension and drama and that are all these outlandish strategies that made me feel very sort of frustrated watching it, because I think it sort of took away from the actual racing. And I know Formula One is like very much a strategy game. Like so much of the discussion during races is about at what lap you change your tires.
And it is pretty cool to see the team and their meetings, and then, you know, they're sitting at their monitors during the race, but then there's a whole other team in another room with 50 monitors and 50 people. Like, is that real? Like, how many people are working to make sure that race goes as well as possible?
Yeah. Well, actually, like, basically, the prize money you get is dependent on where you place on the constructors table from the previous year. So a team like Haas, who have been like a backmarker for a couple of years, like Apex GP are in this film, they used to have...
This podcast is sponsored by Haas, so watch what you say, okay?
But they used to have a tiny... I'm forgetting the name, but that area where there's a couple of high chairs and they're overlooking the track and they're making the race engineers and the team principal are sitting there. It was like tiny. It used to be like 3 seats, like the Apex GP one. And it wasn't until they moved up a couple of places on the constructors table where they won enough prize money to be able to afford a bigger one of those. So I think it felt accurate in that sense, where a backmarker team like visibly looked smaller than sort of
that was
the
a big
big
takeaway for me, just like the man and woman power behind just one or two racers and their 2 cars. Like that's kind of crazy and cool. And do all of these teams have these major institutes and complexes where they're doing their building training and stuff like that? Yeah. I mean, like, I wanted to Google where Apex GP, where their base was, because I thought it was McLaren's one, but I don't think it is. Yeah. It might have been McLaren or Mercedes, but it's just amazing, like, how high tech these these companies are and their cars.
Yeah,
And
but then
I think the movie captures that pretty well.
yeah, and then I think there's like one side of that where like Apex GP has this very modern looking sort of enormous center.
Glassy,
Yeah. And somewhere like Ferrari, they're like based in Maranello in Italy, which is like this tiny town, and the whole town is devoted to Ferrari. Sick. And it's just
So cool.
old buildings, and would love to visit one day, but I think
sounds cool.
It's just like the history of Ferrari is like baked into that, and so it's just very old feeling and doesn't have the look of
You're
any
a
of these
Ferrari
mountains.
homer though.
Yes. Yeah. I will go home one day to Maranello to see that, but I just wanted to say, like, to my point about like the strategies, I think not to like be this really obnoxious person where like this isn't accurate and this would never happen in a Formula 1 race, but one of the races that drove me crazy in this film was when Sonny decided, without the team's approval, he just decided that the strategy would be that he would start crashing into things and other cars to force safety cars and yellow flags.
Right.
And he faced no consequences for this at all. I know like he ended up like being at the back of the grid, and he did this all to help Joshua make up a few places.
Get your license suspended for a few months.
Yeah, you can get points on your super license. You can get a 10-second penalty. Like Max Verstappen has gotten way worse penalties for doing way lighter offenses than that. And so when like he crashes for like the third time, I was like, are you serious? Like,
are you daft?
This I was like, this is crazy. This is crazy. Yeah. And also, like, he makes no attempts to hide that this is what he's doing, like crashing on purpose. And
and the whole roster of racers would fucking hate this guy.
Yeah, exactly.
My last thing I want to say about the movie, which I disliked, is that I actually thought for like the first 2 acts it's a pretty composed film, and I thought it got really sloppy in the final act.
Like, you think so? In what sense?
Yeah, like the Tobias Menzies thing, an actor
that was
a ton of time for. I love him. Like, I love him in The Crown and Game of Thrones, so many things. But that just was like grafted onto this. It was very cheesy. There's this tiny bit of corporate espionage that comes out of nowhere relating to the car being tampered with. And then Brad Pitt like flies off the handle because of this. And from the engineers, they're like, this is in the Vegas moment. So he's like, just turns off his microphone and not listening anymore. And they're like, what's he doing? And they're like, he's driving angry. I'm like, why? What? Where did this come from? Like, it just felt so unmotivated.
Yeah.
And I just don't think, like, again, it's so frictionless. It's so lacking proper conflict, stakes, a villain. When they tried to do it, it just was extremely transparent and didn't work for me.
Maybe, like, this film didn't even need a villain, honestly. Because I think, like, the rivalry is the main crux of the conflict in this story. So the fact that they have this villain who's almost, like, cartoonishly evil tacked onto
Hail Mary.
It. Yes.
Hail Mary.
I love trying to survive.
Again, Tobias doing his best.
Yeah.
Great actor.
Yeah, it just felt so forced and added sort of conflict where it didn't need one.
Yeah.
And I think it detracts from the main sort of drive, keep making the puns, of the story, which is that, you know, this team needs one win or else they're not going to exist anymore.
And it sidelines Dance and Idris right when he's getting going.
Yeah, exactly. And we needed more of him, and we needed more of Simone Ashley, who was rudely cut out of this film and limited to a cameo, which is egregious. Do you know Simone Ashley? So she became famous from Sex Education and Bridgerton. But she was cast in an F1 movie, and she like popped up at a bunch of races, and I think
who's she supposed to play?
I think the idea was that she was supposed to be Joshua's love interest.
Okay.
Don't hold me to that, but I believe that was supposed to be her role. and her role ended up getting cut completely to just, you see it in the beginning of the film, it's like a millisecond cameo where she waves to the camera, and in the credits she's credited as herself. But Joseph has said that, you know, like, it was just impossible to fit her in, and like they took so much footage and there's only so much you can do, and she like understands that like not everyone's gonna make it into the final film, but
Publicists are working extra hard to
yeah especially when there's so few women
yes
in this movie.
We're wrapping up discussing F1, the Brad Pitt Formula One film. This sits right now at 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, 71% on Metacritic. That's pretty respectable, right?
Yeah. I think the critics, I mean, I haven't read everything out there, but I think the critics they agree that the racing scenes are like what makes this film stand out, and
yeah,
I think, you know, give it a reason for existing, because it's just like absolutely breathtaking what is sort of accomplished in that sense. But I have like read a few reviews from critics who are also F1 fans, and I think there's a sentiment shared there that I agree with, where the racing feels sort of lacking. There's a review I really like from Clarice Laufrey at The Independent. Let me pull this up right now, actually.
I have some quotes for you too.
Oh, okay. You go first, and I'll find this quote.
Well, I'll say like the people who like it. And by the way, we don't have really the audience feeling yet because it's too soon. We'll know in a few days what people think. But at the top line, the critics that like it say it's fun, it's thrilling, it flies by, it has panache. I actually thought it moved pretty quickly, even though it's a long movie. I did not realize how long it was. And then on the negative end, someone said that it's an 156-minute Formula One commercial, that the visual style is antiseptic, which I thought was kind of funny to call it that. Feels like everything's been cleaned and burnished to the exact polish that almost feels fake. And that the tropes are just extremely familiar and very tropey.
Yeah.
Which I think basically all of that can be true at the same time of this film.
I agree with all of that too. Right after I saw the film, I talked with David Ehrlich at IndieWire, who gave a sort of mixed to negative review of Formula One. He told me that his biggest problem with it was actually the way the racing sequences are shot. He didn't think they were shot that dynamically. The Independent review, the quote I particularly liked in that review is where Clarice says that the fact that it takes until the film's final Grand Prix, after we spent more than 2 hours bouncing from the UK to Italy to Japan, etc., to actually let the audience soak into some honest-to-God skilled racing, has a real way of taking the sheen off all these flexes about actors in the driver's seat. And I feel like that really sums up my feelings about the film, where it's all well and good that Brad Pitt and Damson Idris are driving actual F2 cars, and that's really impressive because that's a feat in itself, but the fact that you don't get that actual wheel-to-wheel racing that makes Formula One so exciting to watch until the very end.
Well, if this is the gateway drug for a newbie into the world of Formula One, what should they do next? Where would you point them? Should they just watch a Formula One race, or do they need a little bit more of an on-ramp?
Honestly, I think you could go straight into F1. I would give it a go. Well, I think, like, to the point of, like, my problems with the racing in this movie, perhaps, like, an entertaining race for a fan and someone who's completely unfamiliar with it are fundamentally different things. So maybe you wouldn't be excited by cars going around for 50 to 70 laps, but I mean, give it a go.
Shorter than NASCAR, right?
Yeah, for sure.
A race is what, an hour and a half, maybe?
It's like 2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah. But actually, I watched Grand Prix from 1966 for the first time last night, and it's actually like all on YouTube, so very easily accessible. It has the same principle as F1 the movie, where this is shot at actual races. The opening sequence of this film takes place at Monaco, and it's just the entire first 20 minutes of the film. This film is 3 hours long. It's a bit long.
Yeah.
But the first 20 minutes is just the race at Monaco. And even back in 1966, like, the racing sequences
Well, I'm
look
sure it was
amazing.
far less safe too.
Yeah,
In a more cinematic way.
Yeah, but also there were certain things like people were just like crossing the street at one point, and I was like, that can't be legal.
Yeah.
What the hell?
I think I saw Kaczynski say it. He
Oh,
watched
really?
that to prep for this. Yeah,
I can see
it was
that.
An influence on
Yeah,
him.
because the racing sequences, especially in that first Monaco race, that Monaco race just looks amazing, and you really feel the speed and the stakes. The crashes are absolutely crazy. In that one where like the cars just like driving up a wall, it looks absolutely mad.
And I've mentioned it a few times, but I would tell people to definitely watch Senna, which is on Netflix, because I was bawling like a baby, and I went into that knowing nothing and came away from it like, why did Senna leave McLaren for Williams? And how could Alain Prost do that to him? You know, like I suddenly was just completely hooked. That right there, I mean, I don't want to spoil it, even though it's real life, but like, imagine the most tragic thing ever happening to Michael Jordan at the peak of his powers, or Roger Federer like 10 years ago, and that's what happened to Senna.
Yeah.
I thought it was one of the best documentaries I've seen in like a really long time. It also got me
so
into
good.
like the legend and the feeling of Formula One at its most evocative.
Yeah.
And then, should people watch Drive to Survive?
Honestly, yeah, I would
Yeah?
recommend it.
How many seasons are they at now?
It's like 7 or 8 now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but honestly, you can start
Could
from.
you just pick up with the new season?
Yeah, I think you could pick up from the new season.
Maybe I'll do that.
And then maybe work your way backwards, because there are like fun personalities you'll end up missing because they don't drive on the grid anymore.
I wonder if we converted any listeners to new Formula One fans.
I hope so.
I gotta tell you, I'm kind of into it. I get it. I get it at least more than I did. I went in with an open mind. The movie was pretty good, but what I've read about since, watched since, talking to you, I don't know. I'm kind of into it. Gotta tell you.
I hope to receive some DMs from you talking about races you're watching and all this. Is there a race this weekend? I can't remember. There's definitely one next weekend, and I will be there.
I wonder who airs it in the U.S.
You have to watch on F1 TV, I think. Yeah.
All right. Well, Ayana, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on and talking through this, and fascinating stuff. What are you looking forward to seeing this summer that's coming up? Just out of curiosity.
Oh my god. This summer? Do you know what, actually, Weapons?
Yeah.
The trailer came out the other day, and I just have no idea what the film is gonna be. I'm so curious. And I rewatched Barbarian the other day, and I love like how that film completely switches up on you into something else, and I hope Weapons does something similar to that. It feels like it's gonna do something like that, so I'm really excited to see that. Blockbuster wise, nothing is really at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
What'd you give F1? What'd you rate it?
I gave it a 3 stars and a heart.
Nice.
Yeah.
I gave it a 3.5, I think.
Oh, okay. We feel kind of similarly.
Last thing I want to say before we leave is, like, I think we approached it from perhaps too analytical a place, and I am curious, like, if people will just go gaga for this, because if you're an average person and cars go vroom vroom very fast, like, it's hard not to just be overtaken by that.
Yeah, I think that's a symptom of us.
On a simple, primal level.
Yeah, I think that's the problem with us being film critic people, is that sometimes we just can't enjoy a movie for what it is. But I think you should be allowed to, think critically of films,
sure.
even when they invite
sure.
you to switch your brain off. But I do think like people are gonna lap up this film. I've even seen like F1 fans who were like initially skeptic of this film sort of be won over by it. So
yeah.
I imagine it's gonna do numbers. I don't know about 300 million. I'm curious, like, I kind of usually don't care about
commercials are always loss leaders, and if this is an advertisement, it's bringing people to Apple, to the sport, and they can look at that on their books and be like, okay, that's the value proposition, not like this is going to earn back its budget,
Yeah, no matter how well this film does, I'm sure they're going to win over some new fans, and that was the ultimate goal of this film.
All right. Well, Ayana, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.